whale droppings, lawyers, most bankers that I can name.
Greitz will run as an independent. His platform comes from the outside, perhaps even the fringe.
We're going to get rid of the Federal Reserve. I will get rid of the income tax. I will pull us out of the UN.
Greitz believes in the Kennedy assassination conspiracy and others. So you think there's a medical industrial complex, is what you're saying? And cites the usual suspects for America's troubles.
The international bankers and the world intellectuals.
The incumbent president and his challengers probably aren't too worried about Greitz. So what makes Greitz think he's got a chance?
One is I'm a Christian. Secondly is I believe in the United States of America. And thirdly, I can balance a checkbook, which makes me probably better qualified than anyone you can name in Washington, D.C. today.
I'm Lois Hart for NBC News.
Greitz believes we need to get rid of the politicians and bureaucrats and put real people in office. I'm Sarah James, and you're watching NBC Nightside, a production of the NBC News Channel in Charlotte, North Carolina.
A day after tennis great Arthur Ashe announces he has the AIDS virus, the administration speeds up the approval process for AIDS drugs. And British voters decide the fate of the major government.
This is NBC News at Sunrise with Ann Curry.
Good morning, I'm Paul Majors for Ann Curry. The federal government is announcing plans to speed up its approval process for new drugs for AIDS, cancer, and other life-threatening diseases. And as Bob Hager reports, President Bush is also announcing plans to make experimental drugs available to many more AIDS patients.
Central to the plan is an accusation that although U.S. drugs have generally been recognized as best in the world, the approval process in this country has in the past been cautious and extremely slow. But more recently, for the new AIDS drugs, AZT and DDI, the Food and Drug Administration tried shortcutting the approval process. Today's new regulations would make the same shortcuts available for many other life-saving drugs. Vice President Dan Quayle talked about it last November.
It is critical that the federal government do everything in its power to make sure therapies for terrible diseases such as AIDS, cancer, Alzheimer's, and cystic fibrosis reach the marketplace as rapidly as possible.
Also to be announced today, AIDS drugs which are still called experimental will nonetheless be made available to patients who want to try them, even if those patients aren't enrolled in a formal experiment. Robert Hager, NBC News, Washington.
News of the speed up in approving badly needed drugs comes just one day after tennis great Arthur Ashe announced that he has the AIDS virus. He told a news conference in New York how he contracted HIV.
It was transmitted through a blood transfusion after one of my open heart bypass operations. In all likelihood, the second operation in 1983. I have known since the time of my brain operation in September 1988 that I have AIDS.
Experts say he's one of almost 5,000 Americans who became infected through transfusions in the late 70s and early 80s. In other news, voters are going to the polls in Britain today in a national election that could mean the end for John Major's Conservative government. Margaret Larson is in our London bureau this morning. Good morning, Margaret.
Good morning, Paul. This is the closest contest in British elections in 30 years. After a month of bare-knuckled campaigning, voters are flocking to the polls, and anything could happen.
Right. A vote this morning by Neil Kinnock for Neil Kinnock, the son of a Welsh miner and head of the Labour Party. He hopes to unseat John Major, the beleaguered Conservative Party Prime Minister who inherited the mantle of Margaret Thatcher and now finds himself in the fight of his life.
What will you be doing tomorrow morning?
I will be considering the next 5 years and how to run the country.
British voters, troubled by the longest recession in 3 decades, aren't sure where to turn.
They don't like what the Tories have done to the economy and the mess that we're in because of the recession over the past couple of years. They don't trust Neil Kinnock and the Labour Party to do any better.
The wild card in the election is this man, Paddy Ashdown, head of the third largest party, the Liberal Democrats. If either Major or Kinnock wins the election without an outright majority, they'll have to form a coalition government with him.
I think it will be very close, but I'm hoping that we'll get a change.
The opinion polls see this as a dead heat, though late last night it appeared John Major's Conservatives might be closing the gap. That news sent the British stock market soaring this morning. Then again, dry weather is predicted across Britain today, suggesting a high voter turnout, which traditionally helps the Labour Party. It is simply too close to call. Paul?
Thank you, Margaret Larson in London. After a surprising second-place finish in the New York primary without even campaigning, Paul Tsongas will announce later this morning whether he'll re-enter the race for president. Aides to the former Massachusetts senator say it's not likely. Tsongas dropped out of the Democratic race after 4 primary showings and increasing financial problems. Barely taking time to savor his Tuesday primary sweep, Bill Clinton is now campaigning hard in the next big primary state, Pennsylvania. As Andrea Mitchell reports, the emphasis there is the blue-collar vote.
Labor is a major force in Pennsylvania, so Bill Clinton didn't lose any time trying to connect to union voters in the next primary state.
That if you will support me, I'll fight for you.
Clinton did get a majority of the union vote in this week's primaries, but he is still suspect to some labor leaders. That's because Arkansas is a right-to-work state, and as governor, Clinton has not always fought for labor.
When there is a fight, for example, in the legislature on say, a workers' compensation issue, at least the last time when we had a fight, he came down on the side of the employers.
In a high-profile appeal to the union vote, Clinton also jumped into the middle of the bitter 5-month-old Caterpillar tractor strike in Peoria, joining strikers who began to be replaced this week. Clinton supports pending legislation forbidding strikers to be replaced, in contrast to George Bush, who has promised to veto it. Despite his poor showing in New York this week, Jerry Brown is also competing for union support and won't stop campaigning. Although Brown refuses to quit, Clinton has 2/3 of the delegates needed to be nominated. Even reluctant party leaders on Capitol Hill will soon fall in behind him, knowing that, damaged or not, he will probably be the nominee. Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, Washington.
PLO leader Yasser Arafat remains in a Libyan hospital this morning. He's recovering from injuries suffered when his plane crash landed in a desert sandstorm Tuesday night. 3 of the plane's crew members were killed and 5 others badly injured. There's no word on the extent of Arafat's injuries. NASA's brand new space shuttle Endeavour is in for some major repairs. The space agency says it needs to replace all 3 of the orbiter's engines because their bearings are worn from a test firing earlier this week. NASA says the repair work will not mean a delay in Endeavour's scheduled inaugural launch May 5th. We'll have more news, Joe Whitty's weather, and the day in business right after this.
What does $1 billion worth of service feel like? Sheridan, it feels like this.
We spent $1 billion, so you'll feel like $1 million at Sheraton Hotels.
Mom sent pictures. You're as big as a house.
Oh, you should see me.
Moments like this were made for Gold MasterCard. With the added credit you've earned.
It's a long drive, and you'll need the map.
Plus, no card is more welcomed. At home or abroad. Not American Express, not even Visa.
Oh, Lori, I can't believe it. How in the world?
Gold MasterCard, the best gold card to master the moment.
It's never too late for the good taste of Smucker's. Surprisingly, under 20 calories, and jams are naturally fat-free. A good way to end your day. With a name like Smucker's, it has to be good.
I feel good. I knew that I would.
Senokot laxative tablets work like second nature overnight.
So good, I got you.
Stock prices dropped again yesterday. The Dow Jones Industrials lost more than 32 points. Looking ahead to today's market, here's the Wall Street Journal's Randy Smith. I suppose we should start in Japan. Another bad day over there.
That's right. Down another 577 points, another 3%. The third straight day of heavy losses there.
And how is that going to affect our market here?
In London, stock traders are saying that if the Dow opened right this second, it would be down about 10 points. We've had 2 days of pretty heavy selling on the Dow in reaction to Japan. It's really the first time the market has begun focusing intensely on it. So given that Japan is down again today, we could have some more selling.
And what stocks in our market have taken big hits as a result of the problems in Japan?
Bank stocks in particular, on fears that Japanese banks, which have been among the hardest hit stocks in that market, because they have so many interconnections in terms of securities transactions, swaps, and futures contracts with our banks, they may have some problem delivering or fulfilling on their side of the contract, and that could cause a big loss at some big U.S. bank.
All right, Randy, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Paul.
Let's go to Joe Whitty and the weather. I guess you and I will not be taking that weekend gig in Alaska.
I think I may take a pass on that. Florida looks a lot better, Paul. Alaska, very winter-like. Nome, Alaska, a record 28 stormy, snowy, rainy days. Barrow today will have wind chills of 50 below zero by tonight, and Fairbanks, Alaska, 3 inches of snow by late today. But on the lower 48, it's very much like spring. That includes some spring thunderstorms late this afternoon for parts of Texas. Sunshine for Florida, though. Scattered light showers in the east, all the way from the Great Lakes down to the Gulf of Mexico, and some mountain snows, though, in the Cascades of Oregon and Washington. Temperature-wise, everybody's pretty close to normal. Those 80s and 90s down in Southern California do look awfully nice. That is my national weather. Now here's what's happening in your neighborhood. For Phoenix, 91 degrees for a high. LA's high, 77 degrees. Seattle, 58. 84 degrees at the beach at Miami and also Brownsville, Texas. 64 at Chicago, not too bad. Minneapolis going up to 54 degrees by this afternoon. Just a few more minutes, the outlook for Saturday, the first day of the weekend. Paul?
Thank you very much, Joe. In basketball, the NBA playoff race heats up. Sports Report is next, right after this.
Please, if you don't have the right pruning tools, don't go near your plants. Go to a True Temper Pruning Center. You'll find the proper tool for every job, plus helpful tips that tell you how and when to prune. See the True Temper Pruning Center where you buy tools, because the right True Temper tools can make a big difference.
To protect the lives of firefighters, DuPont developed a remarkable fire-resistant fiber for their clothing called Nomex. But perhaps even more remarkable is how it protects those who never even wear it. At DuPont, we make the things that make a difference.
Wilkins, we wrote the book, A Better Car Deal. At Wilkins Pontiac in St. Louis Park through Saturday, save $5,000 on totally redesigned all-new 92 Bonnevilles with airbags from just $15,992. Or choose 4.8% financing for 48 months on new Bonnevilles. And Wilkins Pontiac has 60 new Grand Ams with air conditioning, stereo, anti-lock brakes, and more. Sale price from $11,492. Sunbirds, Transports, Grand Prix. See Wilkins Pontiac, Highway 100 and Excelsior Boulevard now.
Each spring, robins work hard finding new homes. But this year, the robin family found an easier way. They flew to Super America and picked up a spring preview guide. The preview has hundreds of new homes with features to make 90s living easy and more comfortable. And when you select a preview home, you can move right in. The 1992 spring preview. Finding a new home any other way is, well, for the birds. Pick up your free preview guide today at any Super America.
In sports, the hockey season may officially end today. NHL President John Ziegler says the rest of the schedule will be canceled if the players don't accept a contract offer by this afternoon. And while hockey is melting away, the NBA is heating up. New York now leads the Atlantic Division by only 2 games with 5 left. The Knicks fell to Boston 93-89. Elsewhere, Detroit defeated Philadelphia by 18. New Jersey whipped Washington by 6. Golden State was 19 points better than Dallas, and Indiana was 15 better than the Bucks. A scary moment in Milwaukee last night. Minnesota's Shane Mack was beamed by Mike Fetters. He suffered a concussion and was taken to a hospital for observation. The Brewers won the game 9-5 on B.J. Surhoff's grand slam in the bottom of the 9th. Dean Palmer continues his long ball assault. The Texas third baseman blasted his 3rd homer in 3 games last night, powering the Rangers past Seattle 13-1. Oakland beat Kansas City on Ricky Henderson's homer in the bottom of the 13th. The White Sox clipped the Angels. Toronto held off Detroit 10-9, and Cleveland blanked Baltimore 4-0. In the National League, one of baseball's rarest and most exciting plays. Montreal's Delino DeShields sent Pittsburgh's Andy Van Slyke to the wall. The ball bounced away, and DeShields didn't stop until he had an inside-the-park homer. But the Expos still lost 4-2. St. Louis blasted the Mets, and Philadelphia clobbered the Cubs. Atlanta topped Houston again, and San Diego stopped Cincinnati. And in golf, the 56 Masters tees off today in Augusta. Ian Woosnam goes for his second straight title. And that 83-man field includes 19 previous Masters winners, and that's sports. The news continues in just a moment. You're watching NBC News at Sunrise.
He's a former tennis superstar infected with the AIDS virus. Arthur Ashe shares his emotional battle against the disease, live later on Today.
At Alex Audio and Video, we take pride in staying on the cutting edge of fast-moving technology. We believe in investing in the training of our technicians and the maintaining of a well-stocked parts department. We provide our technicians with the latest service equipment and service information. Fast returns, averaging 3 to 5 days for in-shop repairs, is a top priority. Alex Audio and Video is the authorized service center for most brands of home entertainment equipment, with 4 locations to serve you.
Watch Diana Pierce on KARE 11 News.
Here's some of the stories we're following this Thursday morning on NBC News at Sunrise. Decision day for British voters. Capitol Hill Democrats unveil their proposals for long-term health care. And Colorado's Tim Wirth becomes the 7th senator to decide not to run for re-election. The cost of higher education in America continues to climb. It's so expensive that a brand new doctor or lawyer often looks forward to a decade of debt. Tom Brokaw takes another look.
I'm going to ask you some questions about the accident.
San Antonio lawyer Rick Reyna prepares to take an auto accident case to trial. He's just out of law school, and he is $90,000 in debt. For a resident, Sherry Clayton, the education tab has reached $140,000. And for a third-year medical student, Eric Gunderson, his education loan is already $40,000 and growing. For most, it is a struggle. And for many, paying off the debt determines what jobs and careers they choose. 2 years ago, Rick Reyna graduated from Georgetown University Law School in Washington, D.C.
Hi, Mom. How are you doing?
His dream was to come back to the Hispanic community and practice public interest law. But Reyna says he can't because he has to make money to pay off his student loans.
My loan repayment obligations are about $1,000 a month, which is pretty substantial. And when I make my final payment in 26 years, I will end up paying $199,000.
So Reyna is now a corporate lawyer.
Ms. Chapa, have you ever given a deposition before?
Practicing in the Hispanic community is a dream deferred, but he realizes it probably will become a dream abandoned.
The more money you make, the more comfortable you get, and it becomes more and more difficult with each passing year to say, okay, I'm going to pass all of this up. That's yet another dilemma that I'm going to face.
That is the same dilemma facing medical students like Eric Gunderson.
Okay, good. Thank you.
He's in a training program with doctors at this inner-city Milwaukee clinic, which serves the poor. It's the kind of medicine Gunderson would like to practice after he graduates, but he doesn't think that he can afford to.
I'm going to take a listen to your heart. I'm going to ask you to breathe and then...
Gunderson says that rising tuitions and loan debts are hurting the medical profession.
There's a need to pay back your debt, so it pushes people into higher paying specialties.
That's what's happening to Sherry Clayton, chief resident at Westchester County Medical Center in New York.
I'm Dr. Clayton.
She wanted to practice general medicine in her hometown, but she's going to specialize in the more lucrative area of cardiology. Even so, Clayton will struggle to pay off her loans.
It cost me $140,000. That's the amount I had to borrow. When I pay that all back with interest over 20 years, it will be $501,000.
We're looking at about $2,500 a month in total.
Tony Sozo, New York Medical College financial aid director, is Clayton's debt counselor.
I'm seeing a trend where the costs really are outpacing
the average salaries, or at least early salaries in one's professional life.
Hello,
These are my friends and colleagues.
Sozo and other college financial aid directors have lobbied members of Congress for reforms in federal student loan programs. Representative Nita Lowey of New York has sponsored a bill that would link loan repayment to income.
We give them several options. We're paying over 30 years, paying small amounts at the beginning, increasing that amount later on.
But despite her debt situation, Sherry Clayton says she would do it all again.
I love patients. I'm with them 80, 100 hours a week. I love them. I wouldn't do anything else. But the debt, the loans are scary, very scary.
NBC News correspondent Tom Brokaw. We'll have more news, the Wall Street Journal's Alan Murray on business, and Joe Woody's weather when we return. Topping our news this morning, Britain's Conservative Party on the brink. Voters are at the polls in Britain, and they may put an end to the Conservative Party's 13 years of parliamentary control. Prime Minister John Major blames economic problems for the threat to his party. Tennis legend Arthur Ashe has reluctantly acknowledged that he has the AIDS virus. Ashe told reporters in New York yesterday he became infected in 1983 from a transfusion of contaminated blood. Ashe is 48. He was the first black man to win Wimbledon and the U.S. Open. On Capitol Hill today, Democratic leaders unveiled their proposals for long-term health care. Henry Champ says the plan already faces the threat of a veto.
Americans now live much longer, and many families, as a result, are struggling with the costs of long-term health care. Nursing home care costs an average of $35,000 a year, and few Americans have adequate insurance.
The only thing that Medicaid will do for you is it will provide you with coverage after you've impoverished yourself.
The Democratic proposal provides 6 months of nursing home care regardless of income. It provides benefits to cover home care, and it allows a family to protect up to $60,000 in assets as well as the family home and still receive full assistance.
We think that this bill should become a litmus test as to whether politicians really care about the American family.
One politician who won't support the bill is the president, who opposes the measure because it raises taxes.
There would be a tax increase, about $20 a month for the average family of 4. But Democrats believe it's a price Americans will willingly pay. They want to make it an election issue, characterizing the president as someone ignoring the fears of Americans growing old. Henry Champ, NBC News, Washington.
More than a fifth of the U.S. senators eligible for re-election this year have now said they're calling it quits. Roger O'Neill tells us Colorado Democrat Tim Wirth is the latest to bow out.
In joining the list of others who are quitting, Senator Wirth issued a blistering wake-up call to the country.
The president shirks his duty to lead. The Congress is stymied by relentless and pointless maneuvering for short-term political advantage.
As one of the reformers after Watergate, Wirth, first as a congressman, then senator, says he has watched the institution of government, like a busy street, become gridlocked.
I have not liked what I have found. Personal ambition and partisan bickering set too much of our agenda.
Senator Wirth suggested perhaps it was a wish that 1992 would become the next American Revolution if voters demand of their politicians a return to civility, common sense, and shared purpose, and if the politicians will listen. The senator can retire with more than $1 million in his campaign war chest. It's money he can keep, but perhaps as proof that actions speak louder than words, Wirth said he will return that money. Roger O'Neill, NBC News, Denver.
The jury in Manuel Noriega's drug and racketeering trial has been ordered to try again, even though the foreman insists the panel is deadlocked. Noriega is accused of playing a key role in drug smuggling and money laundering while he was president of Panama. The judges called a hung jury his worst nightmare. The judge in the trial of 4 Los Angeles police officers has refused to declare a mistrial. The lawyer for one defendant demanded a mistrial because of remarks made about his client by another defendant. The remarks involved an earlier incident in which an officer was disciplined for kicking a handcuffed suspect. When we return, the Wall Street Journal's Alan Murray on the Tokyo market and the U.S. economy, and Joe Whitty with a preview of the weekend weather.
The Easy Spirit Color Playoffs. The Golds versus the Patents. Feels like a sneaker. Easy Spirit Shock Blocker Pumps.
There really is a sneaker inside these little pumps.
Now, when you buy Easy Spirit shoes, you'll get a free simulated pearl necklace. And you can also register to win a strand of real pearls. Hurry, this special offer ends soon. Join the Easy Spirit Pearl Hunt today. Call for the store nearest you.
This plant is in trouble. Maybe so are you. Because what will you do? And how will you do it? With the one who guides you every step of the way. Ortho. It's our nature to help.
Images are changing at JCPenney because the Hager Week sale lets you save on our entire line of dress and casual wear. It's a sale that can update your look, sharpen your style, or add a little punch to your personality. With Hager Fashions at JCPenney Values. So try a new image on for size at the Hager Week sale.
Microsoft Excel can take any spreadsheet figure and easily turn it into a beautiful fact. All you do is point and click. Microsoft Excel, the spreadsheet for Windows. We'd like to point out that for 10 million people, Microsoft Windows is an easier way to use their PCs. We'd now like to point out how easy it is to see for yourself. Just call 1-800-882-2000.
The Japanese stock market has been in a free fall of late, losing more than 3% of its value just this morning. The Wall Street Journal's Alan Murray joins us now to tell us what it all means to the U.S. economy. Good morning, Alan.
Good morning, Paul.
Now, how is the Japanese market going to affect the U.S. economy?
Well, I think it's going to have an effect. You know, for years, a lot of Americans have been wishing that the Japanese economy would slow down from its juggernaut pace, but now I think they're going to learn the perils of getting what you wish for. Japanese money financed our economy through a lot of the 1980s, and as the Japanese banks and insurance companies have to pull that money back to deal with these financial problems at home, it's definitely going to be felt here. In a place like California, 1 out of every 4 business loans made in recent years has come from a Japanese bank. So they'll certainly feel it, and I think the rest of the country may feel it in terms of higher mortgage rates, higher long-term rates, and also reduced exports. Everyone likes to talk about the things we import from Japan, but Japan is also our second largest export market.
And here at home, we have seen signs of economic recovery. Now, is this going to hurt our chances of an economic recovery?
I don't think it'll be enough to prevent an economic recovery, but it is one more reason to expect that this economic recovery isn't going to be a particularly strong one.
You know, has it been a mistake for Americans to worry about the strength of the Japanese economy all these years?
Well, I don't think it's a mistake for Americans to wonder why it has been that the Japanese economy has been growing twice as fast as the American economy, but I do think it's a mistake to think that the answer to that is to try and tear down Japan. The answer is to try and deal with the problems here in the United States and boost our growth.
Mm-hmm. So in other words, there's really nothing we can do about their situation over there. We shouldn't worry about it?
It's a worrisome situation. I can tell you that the people at the Treasury Department, people at the Federal Reserve are paying a lot of attention to it. Right now, however, I'm not sure that there's a lot we can do about it.
All right. Thank you very much. Well, you know, it's never too early to worry about the weekend weather.
And guess what? We can't do anything about it either, Paul.
Yeah.
Wish I could. Palm Springs yesterday, 92 degrees, but if you go to the Pacific Northwest, a wet day, and take a look at the satellite loop, you can see over the Pacific Ocean a string of clouds that's going to continue into the weekend. So a wet weekend for Washington and Oregon. Clouds moving from the Great Lakes to the East Coast will bring some light scattered showers. So the traveling map says bring an umbrella perhaps from, say, Detroit, Cleveland to New York, but showers will be on the light side. Some scattered thunderstorms over portions of Texas later on today, and there's that band of moisture moving into Washington, Oregon, through the northern Rocky Mountain states, where freezing level will be about 6,000 feet at times, and a chance of some scattered thunderstorms. Southwest sunny skies, LA's high 77, and a quick look at the weather trend for Saturday says, yes, wet still in the Pacific Northwest. rain for the Northeast, but look at the Southeast. Sunny skies, good news for the Masters tournament. Paul?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Joe. And finally, it seems that things don't change much in Thorpe, Wisconsin. 2 years ago, the race for town alderman ended in a tie. Again this week, the two candidates for alderman got 47 votes each. Each time, the race had to be settled by a coin toss, and the same candidate lost both times. He says he's just no good at games of chance. That's NBC News at Sunrise this Thursday morning. I'm Paul Majors. We'll see you tomorrow.
What would you do if a video simulation showed you committing murder? Computer animation. It may be the courtroom witness of the future. Tonight on NBC Nightly News.
Each spring, robins work hard finding new homes. But this year, the Robin family found an easier way. They flew to Super America and picked up a spring preview guide. The preview has hundreds of new homes with features to make 90s living easy and more comfortable. And when you select a preview home, you can move right in. The 1992 Spring Preview. Finding a new home any other way is, well, for the birds. Pick up your free preview guide today at any Super America.
Chiropractic care is now just a phone call away. Just dial Network for direct connection to the participating chiropractor nearest you. Most insurance accepted. The Chiropractic Network. Just dial NETWORK. Our lives are full of gambles. Sometimes we win, and sometimes we lose. If you've been injured in an automobile or motorcycle accident, don't gamble with your future. Call United Services Access Attorney Network, 780-8899.
Watch Paul Douglas on KARE 11 News.
Well, good morning and happy Thursday. I'm Ken Barlow.
I'm Kathy Vara. Next on KARE 11 Sunrise, Arthur Ashe says he may join hands to work together with Magic Johnson for AIDS support groups. Arson has not been ruled out in an overnight fire in a railroad boxcar in St. Paul. And as a Senate committee takes up the health right bill today, state lawmakers say the measure could be in trouble.
And it's a cool, crisp morning once again. It should be another beautiful day today. We'll have a complete weekend outlook, news, sports, and traffic. KARE 11 Sunrise is next.
From your 24-hour news station, this is KARE 11 Sunrise.
Good morning, everyone. Thursday, April the 9th, and you are looking at a nice shot of the Minneapolis skyline overlooking Lake Calhoun this morning. Very
Most
nice.
of the area lakes now losing the ice cover. Lots of lakes in the Maple Grove area where I live. That's the only reason I talk about it. Is most of them are ice-free now.
Oh, yeah, well, Parker's Lake in Plymouth, where I live, is also very ice-free.
And also Minnetonka, the big one, of course, is about a week away, they say. So it's getting to be that time of year. We have weather to update. There'll be a lot of melting occurring on those lakes during the day today and an entire weekend, in fact, coming up. But the big story in the news is the revelation of Arthur Ashe yesterday. And what a shocking thing once again.
Really was. He didn't want to go public with his story, but once it was leaked to a newspaper, he had to. We'll have more on that story coming up in just a moment.
And also some reassuring words from the American Red Cross. We'll bring you that, too.
Okay, right now we want to begin with our latest on a fire in the Twin Cities overnight. And Martha Koloski is standing by now at the overnight desk with details on that. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning, Kathy. In overnight news, a fire in St. Paul kept fire crews busy for about a half hour. A boxcar in a railroad yard near Energy Park and Highway 280 caught fire around 1 o'clock. It spewed very thick smoke because of its contents. The boxcar was full of garbage and burned very quickly. Fire crews are still trying to determine if it is a case of arson or if it was accidentally set by transients. And no injuries were reported. It is now 6:02. Kathy?
Okay, thanks, Martha. In other news this morning, charges could come as early as today against a local healthcare worker accused of sexually assaulting 4 patients. The alleged crimes reportedly took place at Mercy Medical Center in Coon Rapids. The incidents were reported last December and January. A male respiratory therapist is the suspect. He has since been fired, but one victim still lives in fear.
I'm afraid. I'm very afraid. I'm afraid he's going to get me. I don't know how he's going to get me, but I'm afraid he is going to